Hi again and welcome back. This video is focused on strategy. Specifically, what are the strategic principles that we have seen emerge from our research? In the last video, we had a call to action. That call to action was all about how do you be more thoughtful? There were really 6 strategic principles that emerged out of all of these groups. The first piece to this was they were purposeful. What do I mean by that? They believed that they owned their future. They believed in where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do. And that didn't mean that it just came to them like that. What it meant was they were willing to invest the time and the effort to do it. The next takeaway that we had is that they were intentional. They were able to relate that purpose holistically across their agency or across their business. And they were intentional about who they wanted to be working with. Who were their customers? What offerings did they have? And what value did they bring to the market? The third takeaway, or the third principle that we found, was that they were aligned, meaning they invested the time, energy, and assets in all of the areas that they needed to, meaning they have their purpose, they have their intention. Now let's get all of our ducks in a row, so to speak, that can deliver upon where we want to go. They were also inclusive, meaning they didn't make these decisions all by themselves or with just their executive team. They reached out to customers, to partners, to the ensemble management team, in some cases to their board of directors, and they brought people together and they said, we need to change. We need to go somewhere. Where is it that we are going and how are we going to come together to get there? What does that look like? They were also courageous, meaning after they had gone through all of this effort, they were disciplined and they stuck to their decisions. They were really good at saying no to the things that they didn't want to do. In one of those first videos I had mentioned, how many of you have customers that maybe you don't want to have? They were turning those people away because they did not fit the groups that they wanted to be serving. And lastly, the 6th principle that we saw emerge from this study was this notion of being proactive, meaning let's be the driver of change. Let's change the industry rather than letting the industry change us. Let's look at each of these a little bit more in depth. Do you know who this guy is? This is Guy Liberté, and he is the founder and the CEO of Cirque du Soleil. He's got a really interesting story, and he's a great representation about being purposeful. How many people actually know the story of how this all got started? Well, first off, Guy was basically homeless when he started. And not only that, he was facing this atmosphere that was extremely competitive. We're talking about he was competing against live entertainment, whether that be other types of urban environments, whether it could be movies, it could be shows, it could have been opera, whatever it may be. He was also competing with just home entertainment. How many of you use Redbox or Netflix or other ways to get entertainment into your house? Also at that time, the circus industry, if you call that an industry, the entertainment industry, but specifically the circus market, was declining. There were less people going. Kids didn't want to go see elephants and giraffes and all these other animals do these tricks. Instead, they wanted to sit at home with a PlayStation. Now, at the same time, what they were finding was that animal activist groups were gaining strength and putting more pressure on these circus entities for their practices with their animals. With all of that turmoil and chaos and all of those hurdles to jump, many people would have stopped. But he didn't, because he believed in what he wanted to do. He believed in what it could be, and he followed that passion. Now, I don't need to read this quote to you to have you understand that it was about something bigger. And so I want to ask you about your business. Why are you in business? Besides just making money, what is it that you want your agency to be doing? Where do you want it to go? What is the lasting difference that you and your agency want to make? How do you want to change the industry? Pause me here and ask yourself those questions and fill it out. And this is not something that you're going to do in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. This is something that takes time. To show you that, I'll give you my purpose, and maybe that can help maybe bring some ideas. It took me just about 9 years to figure it out. but I finally realized what my purpose was, and there's 3 parts to it. First is to help people find doors that they never knew existed. The second is to work with them to remove obstacles that obstruct those doors from opening. And then lastly, it's to work with them and empower them to have the will and the grit to step through those doors and to realize what is on the other side. For me, that has made all of my decisions, and it's made everything extremely clear for me. Everything that I do filters back through that, and everything becomes much easier on the other side. So do that same thing and spend that time to do this. The next piece, there's 3 parts to being intentional. The first is, who are your customers? Who do you want to be working with? What are the offerings then that you're going to bring to those customers? What do you want to be offering? And then where is value in that? We talked a lot about how the sources of revenue are changing. How are you going to get paid for it? Let's look at each of these. Have you seen this breakout? This is a breakout from a group called Cohorts, and it's a great example of being very specific in who are the customers that you're going to target with your offering. Just take a look at this for a moment. They go into the personality of this type of group or individuals. They look at the demographics of them. They even go as far as to say, what is the opportunity here or the potential? If you look at the top right, it talks about that this group is 5.2% of all of the US households. So they know what the market opportunity is at the massive scale. They also go into the lifestyles. What do these people like doing? Where do they find value? Now imagine if you took this and you use this, but then you added more to that, more specifics about these individuals as they come into your business. What if you knew exactly what they liked and didn't like? What if you could know what types of travel that they did, where they went, what they enjoyed on that, what maybe they didn't enjoy, the differences between the different travelers. Maybe the husband likes to do things differently than the wife, and so you need to cater to those. Imagine the knowledge that you could have and the power that you would have with that insight. Now, let's take a look then at offerings. So now that you have spent a little bit of time thinking about your customer and spending time actually knowing who your desired customer is and what they like to do, what are the offerings that you currently have in your portfolio? Ask yourself, are those and should they be your core offerings still? Or based on this notion of, I know I have a better idea of who my desired market is, does that have to change and does that have to shift? Do you have to change what you do to best resonate with those people? What problems could you solve? So along that travel path, what do they typically run into that you could put items or put process or put relationships or put systems in place to make it easier for them, to make it all go by like it was air, like it was seamless, but it has such a big impact. And what is lacking? What do you need to go do? What do you need to go change? So take a couple of moments and think about that. And then I want you to spend some time doing an exercise that we created all around finding value. So take a look at this. The way that this works is that there's 4 questions. And to go, you ask the first question, and then if you get a yes response or you get a positive response, you go to the next question. You do the same thing as you go through. Now, at any time, if you say no or you say maybe, articulate why, because that's a challenge that you may want to go figure out or some research that you may need to go do. Or you'll probably have to jump back to the beginning because maybe that actually isn't value to your new desired customers. You need to look for something else. I'll give you an example of that. One of the things I heard from everyone, why are we so successful? Because we have great people. Now, I agree, many of these different agencies have some very excellent agents, some very knowledgeable agents. But could you really say that your agents are better than everyone else's agents? Is that truly something that differentiates you? Maybe it is. So let's start to peel that away. But that's not necessarily what value looks like. Instead, think of it this way. Let's say that you had a process where you could take just about anyone out of university and you could put them into your business and you could have them ramped up and ready to go within 6 months when you know that the industry standard is 12 months or 18 months. That's value. Because now you're not held to your people and you're not necessarily held to their incoming skill level. You know that you can train them and you know that you can do that faster than anyone else. That has something that is valuable to the business and something that you can potentially work on to help build in other areas of your business. So let me give you a full example here. How many of you know someone that has or is, or maybe you personally now have a personal trainer? When you think about a personal trainer, let's ask this first question. What process, practice, and value do they have that gives them that advantage? So if we peel that apart, they've gone and they've done lots and lots of schooling. They understand how to create a customized itinerary based on the goals that you have and that you want. They know how to push you at the right times and when to back off because maybe you're overexerting yourself. They've been trained to do that. Do they communicate that advantage to the customer? Probably every time you talk to them, right? Every single time you're meeting with a personal trainer, they're proving it. It's not just in the language that they use and what they say, it's in their actions. So you got to bring both of those together. Do their desired customers place a monetary value on it? Are you getting personal training for free? If you are, share your secrets, please. But likely you're paying for that and you're paying a premium for that insight and for that expertise. And then take a look at, are they amplifying the advantage and maximizing the compensation for that? Go to any one of these different gyms, and what are you doing? You're having to pay the gym fee. You're likely paying the fees that you have to pay for all of the personal trainer time. You're likely also getting shakes and protein bars and all sorts of different meals, maybe low carbs, high protein, whatever it may be. You think that that gym is not maximizing all of that revenue? They absolutely are. So take some time and go through a couple of iterations and try to be specific. In order to do that, always ask yourself how or why, and just keep asking that until you get to something that really truly is offering value, maybe to your business or maybe it's to customers directly. So think about that and spend some time with that. This next principle, the third principle, is all about being aligned. How do you get everyone firing and going towards the same North Star, so to speak, but then how do you make sure that you're all going together? There were 7 areas that emerged that we saw the best agencies focusing on. First was their strategic partnerships. They don't partner with anyone that's not offering value or that's not making them better or they're not making them better. It's a strong, authentic partnership. It's important. And so within the list of preferred suppliers at Ensemble, they had their own short list of preferred suppliers. They also were assessing constantly core capabilities. Where do we need to build skills? Where do we need to invest new time or new effort or new resources? Do we need new processes? Do we need more people? What does that look like? So they were constantly asking these questions and they were building the capabilities that they needed for future success. They also looked at how they were reaching the customer. That's a lot around marketing, but now that you know the desired customer, you know the offerings that you have and you know the value, how do you make sure that all of your time, effort, and resources are focused on delivering the message in the right way, in the right medium that they prefer at the right time? Also, there's staffing considerations. Well, in the past, if you were a specialist in just about everything and you've decided that you want to be specific, you may need to go out and search and get that right skill set. Or maybe it's a personality thing. Maybe you're having customers come back to you and say, you know what, Jenny is really nice, but the problem is that I don't feel like I connect with her. So maybe you need someone that has a similar and complementary skill set, but that has a personality that connects more with your client. Then there's all the processes and the systems that need to go in place. And then how many of you are doing business reviews? How many of you are sitting down quarterly or monthly with your strategic partners, with maybe some customers, with your team, and looking at the business? Now, take a moment and answer these questions for yourself. Have you thought about that end-to-end customer experience? The next one is be inclusive. Of course, changes are coming, and they're coming faster than ever. And so you need to think about how you're going to keep people involved in what you do. How are you going to bring customers along, your partners along, your team along? How are you going to have them work with you to identify where is it that we're going and how are we going to work together to face all these challenges that we're up against? And so what I want you to do is think about, how could I bring those people in more frequently? Let's say I do that once a year now. How could I do it twice a year? Or how could I do it maybe once a month? So just try to do it incrementally. The next one is all about being courageous, as I've mentioned. Imagine if you were a stock trader. Can you imagine if you did day trading, the highs and lows you would feel on a regular basis? Yeah, that's really what we heard from a lot of different agencies. The top agencies instead looked at it long term, and they invested to maximize and to accumulate their wealth, meaning their customer base or their relationships. And they also looked at that as a risk mitigation tool. So be courageous, be disciplined, focus your time and your effort, and be willing to say no to the type of business that you don't want or to go into places that you don't want to go. And then the last principle is all about being proactive. On the screen here, you'll see that there's 7 things that we had identified. These are by no means the only 7 that exist. Think about it for yourself as well. How would you be deliberate, or how would you review customer experiences with your team? How are you going to stay abreast of market changes? How are you going to recognize and reward little bets? Could you create your own board of directors to help give you that insight and to help you make decisions? All of those things help you stay ahead of the curve rather than riding the curve. So with that, we've talked about the 6 strategic principles. I encourage you to go back, maybe very frequently, and review these and make sure that you're staying on track. This is absolutely important to get right. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what marketing you do, it doesn't matter sales, and it doesn't matter how you execute or what culture you have. If you don't have the right strategy in place, it's not being as effective as it could possibly be. Thank you.